Hey guys, DeadlyVampirous here, and we are now playing officially Seduce Me 2. I was finally able to go ahead and get the game. So apparently this one, as if you have watched my Seduce Me 1, the first version of it, and watched the bonus clip, if you remember exactly, and I somehow am drugged into the demon world. So apparently though, with this one, it's actually way different. Instead of just having a normal common route where I can choose a character as I'm choosing my choices, I actually can click and select each character that I want to start with. So in this video, I'll go ahead and start with Erik first, and then I'll go ahead and work with everybody, but I'm going to try to get their good endings, and then I will do a clip showing their bad ending. If I actually don't get the good endings, I'll just show a clip of each bad ending. But I will try to get every single, choice option for each character as much as I possibly can. But anyway, though, in this one, apparently, I am fixing to marry one of the guys, and we are fixing to go into the world. So I'm just going to keep the character's name. I don't actually remember what I named her in the first part, but we'll just keep whatever name they give us here, because I don't usually like to change it, but if I do, it will probably be something else. But, or actually, I think I named it Rose. I don't really remember, but anyway, though, we're going to go ahead and just load up. We'll start with Erik first, because, I don't know, it just seems like a proper choice. And I guess we can maybe just end with Diana, or, I don't know, maybe we should start with Diana first? Yeah, whatever. We'll work it out somehow. But anyway, though, we'll go ahead and start with Erik.
Hold on there! Before you start the game, I need to ask you a few things. Don't want you getting lost now.
Okay.
First of all, have you read the first story, Seduce Me the Otome? Like, seriously read it. No skimming, no pretending to read it. No. It's okay if you haven't, but there are a lot of things in this game that you won't understand unless you fully experienced and understood that story first.
Don't worry, we did. We actually played the entire thing, got all the routes and everything. Anyway, let's continue.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Next question. You do know this is Erik's route, right? You know, the second oldest incubus that calls you princess and is seductive and stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, awesome! Alright then. Erik's a nice guy once you see under his Playboy mask.
Don't worry, I actually probably plan on ending with James last, because James is considered my favorite. I actually really like the classics type, so classic, geeky, elegant gentleman type's kind of mine. So we are going to end with James, but right now we'll go ahead and start with Erik first, because I'm not really into the flirty Playboy types, so.
Anyway, I have one last question for you. Some people like hearing the trigger warnings before they start games, while others don't really care and just want to play. It's cool either way, but do you want to know about some of the content listed in the game?
Yeah, let's go ahead and hear that out, because, I really don't know what we're expecting in this. Like I said, I have not read much up on this game yet.
No problem. It's my pleasure. Well, this game is recommended for players ages 18 and up. Trigger warnings include suicide, war, torture, mentions of rape, and a large amount of violence and sexual content. Don't worry though, any sex scene choice you encounter is completely up to you. You can play this game without needing to go through the sex scenes and still get the good endings. Consent is important.
Okay.
I think that should be everything. All right. Phew, that took a while.
Okay.
You forgot something.
Oh, Diana in her demon form. Interesting. Okay.
Huh? What did I forget?
You forgot about the disclaimer.
Oh, crap! Oh, how could I have forgotten about that?
It's fine, I'll take care of it. This game was produced by Michaela Laws using the Ren'Py visual novel engine. We truly hope you enjoy this story.
Thanks, Diana. Now, don't you have a war to go fight?
I do. I just wanted to make sure everything was in order before the story began. I'll take my leave now.
Thanks, Di.
Do not call me Di!
Anyway, we really do hope you like the story. Have fun! See you at the end.
Well, that was an interesting opening. Alright, let's go and get into reading this. A sweet lullaby, one you would hear as you were rocked in your mother's arms as a child. I could not help but adore such melodies with every ounce of my being, smiling whenever one would play for me. It was only fitting that I would enjoy my dreams with the sound of one playing in my head. My slumber was calm and peaceful, as a sweet tune echoed in the abyss of my subconscious. I didn't know why, but I relished that tune that night. Strange, really, how a melody could calm any storm running through your heart. My storm was my engagement to Erik, my demon soulmate. Yes, he was my soulmate, my prince. At the same time, he was indeed a demon. I adored him with every ounce of my being, and I was about to be married to him in the weeks ahead. I couldn't have been more nervous and excited about the whole ordeal. Still, the lullaby that floated in my dreams kept me calm and at peace. I wondered if the same music could soothe an actual child. A child's laughter broke me from my peace, causing me to slowly open my eyes and awaken from my slumber. My eyes focused on the ceiling as I tried to figure out what the sound was. Was it part of my dream? It was effective enough to wake me up. I rose from the bed, looking around the room in confusion. Why had I heard a child's laugh, and how did it wake me up? It was strange to say the very least. A child's voice. However, before I could contemplate about it further, a slight dip in the bed to my side made me gasp softly in surprise. I looked to my side to see Erik still sound asleep beside me. He looked so peaceful and happy, like he was absorbed in a joyful dream of his own. I couldn't help but smile at the sight before leaning down and kissing his forehead. He shifted slightly, mumbling my name. Alright, I believe the last time we played I named her this, but I don't really remember. So, if I'm wrong, oh well. I giggled softly. He was just too adorable for words. I truly loved him with all of my heart. I love you. Still, despite wanting to stay in bed a little longer with the man of my dreams, the child's laughter ushered me to slowly creep out of bed and leave the room to find where it had come from. Turning on the lights in the lobby, I looked around the main part of the mansion to find out where the laughter had come from. I heard the laughter trail off, as if the voice itself was moving and guiding me to where it wanted me to go. I maintained pursuit, not wanting to lose track of it. Any normal person would have been creeped out. I, however, was brave enough to figure out what was going on by myself. I was led to my grandfather's office. It was his place of work, as well as sanctuary for his magic study. I know that he studied magic, and had come to accept it during my time with Erik and his brothers. Still, it was something I was curious about. The lights were on, but the laughter seemed to have faded away as I entered the room. Was I not in the right place? As I stepped further into the room, I felt a sense of nostalgia, despite only ever finding the room after my grandfather's passing. Something about this place made me feel warm and happy, like I belonged here. This is where my grandfather imagined his greatest toys and made them come to life. It was here where he studied endlessly about the demon world and demon magic. I felt like I was stepping into a museum of history. Thinking about it, I began to wonder what my grandfather would think if he knew that I was going to marry one of the incubi he had brought into the human world. I knew he had been the one to do it. Damien confessed to me when Erik proposed. It was a bit interesting to think about how he would have reacted. Would he be proud? Would he be disappointed? I can never know. I was broken out of my thoughts, however, as I heard the click of a lock, unlatching echo through the room. I turned my head toward the sound, pinning the origin of it on one of the nearby drawers. Why did it unlock on its own? I was a little nervous as to why it had done that. Let me look this. Alright, give me just a second here. Let's see, should we leave it alone or should we open it? Alright, so I just want to go ahead and look this up real quick because I want to make sure we do get all of the proper endings. It would just be terrible if we didn't. All right, so apparently it does not matter which ending I choose right here. It does not affect anything. Okay, so I feel like opening it, so we're gonna go ahead and open it. It was indeed my grandfather's granddaughter. I was indeed my grandfather's granddaughter. I felt my curiosity take control of my body and guide me to the drawer. Sliding it open, I saw two books neatly placed in the drawer, covered with a thin layer of dust. One was obviously my grandfather's magic book, and the other must have been his journal. I lifted both up and examined them, gingerly wiping the dust off of them. I wanted to read a bit more about each of them, but I wasn't sure which one to open first. The magic book or the grandfather's journal? You know what? I'm leaning towards the grandfather's journal. Just, I don't know, seems right. I decided to look through grandfather's journal. Maybe he had something he wanted to show me. I wasn't entirely sure why I was doing this in the first place. I opened his journal and scanned my eyes across each page I flipped through. He had so many notes, it was hard to fathom him knowing so much about everything he wrote. He was smart, though, so it wasn't entirely surprising. One section, however, made me stop and read in depth. Demon children. On the page was a badly drawn sketch of a humanoid creature I had to assume was demon. From the size, it could have been a child. However, I wasn't entirely sure. Apparently, there were multiple demon races, not just incubi and succubi. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of different demon types, and each had their own method on how they bred to produce children. Demons on Lilith were the most human-like in terms of pregnancy. They bear the child for a set amount of time, and the delivery, paired with magic, was seamless and painless. However, as soon as a demon is born, the parents imbue their children's demon name into their souls. It seemed so confusing at first glance, but as I read further, I became more and more intrigued about demons and their children. Demon mothers, regardless of race, had to bear enough energy for both the mother and the child. This, along with a host of other reasons, were why females were the dominant gender in the abyssal planes. However, if a demon bearing a child didn't have enough energy, her child would absorb the last of it and kill off the mother in an attempt to sustain itself. I swallowed thickly. Was energy that important to demons? How could a child even do that to their mother? They'd die off too. One thing was expectedly mentioned, however. Unlike humans, demons form souls in the womb, making them living beings while still forming in their mother's body. They become sentient as soon as they are conceived. It was strange to think about. Demon babies were aware that they were alive before they were born. It was intriguing. The child's laughter reappeared, softly floating through the air, and making me turn toward the door. I quickly followed it, leaving the room and returning to the lobby. Is anyone there? As I turned to the stairs, I could hardly believe my eyes. A floating orb, barely the size of my head, was floating down the stairs and toward the back doors. I gripped the railing and stared, not believing what I was seeing. Was this really happening? What was it even? A ghost? A spirit? Some illusion meant to trick me? I couldn't wrap my head around it. Still, it practically called for me to tail behind it. I continued to follow it, seemed to want me to anyway. Was this the game? It led me to the backyard, where it simply floated in the air near the gazebo. I stayed by the doorway, unsure of actually stepping out of the house to meet with it. It didn't move, so I could only assume it accepted my hesitation. Hello?
Hi.
The orb gently spun around itself in a circle, almost like a happy child. For some reason, it made me feel really happy seeing it, despite it being a simple floating orb. It seemed friendly now, so I stepped out into the backyard and slowly made my way towards it. It gently bobbed up and down, as if it was waiting for me to approach. I stopped a couple feet away from it, not wanting to get too close in case it was a trick. Hi there.
Hi. What's your name?
My name? Oh, it's Rose.
Wow, that's a pretty name.
Thank you. Who are you?
Oh, I'm no one. I don't have a name.
You don't have a name?
No, I wasn't able to get one. But that's okay. I'll get one soon.
The orb, whatever it was, had to be the spirit of some child. Human? I didn't know. I wasn't sure. All I knew was how sweet and innocent it sounded. The child's voice was pulling at my heartstrings in all the right ways. The orb twirled around again with a small laugh.
Let's play together.
Oh, I mean, what would we play? I almost couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth. Was I really okay with playing games with a spirit? I mean, it was friendly, yes, but it was a spirit. What I was doing out in the middle of the night with it was another question. I let go of and fade away in my head as I stared at the orb. My heart felt fuzzy and warm, enough to ignore the doubt nagging at my brain. The orb dipped and spun around my body, making me giggle and try to follow it. As it circled back to where it used to be, it almost bounced in the air happily.
Come on, let's dance.
I began to dance around the orb as it moved gracefully around my form. In my head, a song began to play, as if I had fun weaving and swaying with the orb. I felt light and happy, even though a part of my mind was questioning what I was doing. Why was I doing this? Why was I so accepting of the spirit? My body was moving on its own, but I was enjoying every minute of it. The orb followed along, matching each sway with one of its own. Soft laughter echoed from it once in a while, after every couple of steps I took. It seemed to enjoy my company, which in turn somehow made me happy.
Princess?
The orb gasped and hid behind me as I stopped dancing. I turned quickly to see Erik standing by the doorframe with a confused but tired look on his face. Erik!
What are you doing out here, love?
I blushed, rubbing my hands together behind my back from embarrassment. I must have looked like a fool, dancing in the yard in the middle of the night. I turned my head to look at the orb, but gasped in surprise when I realized that it had disappeared. What? Huh?
What's wrong?
I was yawned, lost, and confused. What was happening? What had just happened? I turned back to Erik to see him walking towards me. I crossed my arms, realizing how cold the night air was, and smiled meekly at Erik. I just wanted to get some fresh air, that's all.
While dancing by yourself?
I stared at Erik, not sure of what he meant. If he was watching, he would have seen the spirit dancing with me. Okay, so we have to actually tell him. Remember, we gotta get all the good points. Okay. Yes, we got to tell him. You didn't see the orb that was dancing with me?
Huh? Orb?
Erik raised an eyebrow, obviously not understanding what I meant. Did he really not see it? It's true. There was a spirit here that looked like an orb, and I was dancing with it, not by myself. I knew I wasn't making sense. He didn't seem to believe me. Still, I didn't want to lie to him. He was going to be my husband soon, and we had to trust each other. If my reason sounds stupid, fine, but at least it was the truth. Erik finally smiled and reached towards me before petting my head.
Did you have fun then?
Wait, he really did believe me? I wasn't entirely sure if he did, but from the look he gave me, he was willing to accept my answer either way. Erik gently reached out and took one of my hands, placing his other hand on my waist. I looked up at him to see his lips curve into a small, playful smirk.
Would you mind if I dance with you then, princess?
My face turned red at his question, but I smiled and nodded. I liked dancing with him. I tightened my hand over Erik's, straightening up and leaning against his chest, ready to dance. Erik chuckled softly before leading me into a slow but elegant waltz around the backyard. I felt like I needed to thank the spirit later for giving me yet another wonderful memory with Erik. He led me around the backyard as if we were at a real ball. The moon served as a brilliant crystal chandelier, and the wind became our music. Eventually, however, we had to go back inside. The night was cold, and it was very late. I didn't want the night to end, though. Watching Erik as we walked up the stairs to the bedroom, my heart began to flutter even more, and a soft heat began to burn in my core. He was not only charming, but he was handsome, and definitely knew what buttons to press to make me feel amazing. It didn't matter that he was an incubus. I really had fallen in love with him, and was both romantically and sexually attracted to him. Though, did I really want to pursue my desires right now? We did just stop dancing. No, what the hell, let's do it. The burning in my core wasn't just going to go away. As Erik and I approached our room, I quickly pulled his arm and turned him around to face me.
What?
Before he could finish his sentence, I jumped up and wrapped my arms and legs around him, kissing him deeply. Instinctively, he circled his arms around me to support me, but he stared in shock at my eagerness. Within seconds, he melted into the kiss and panted against my lips, making me moan in reply at the sound. He tightened his grip around me as we walked backwards towards the bed. When his legs hit the side of the mattress, he sat down and allowed his hands to roam my back. I pulled away from the kiss ever so slowly, enjoying every moment that I was still connected to his lips, before letting out a small sigh. I was pretty sure I hadn't made myself clear, but I gave him a softly spoken demand. I don't want to go to bed yet. Erik stared up at me before licking his lips and slowly running his hands under my shirt and up my back. Tingles shot up my spine as his fingers ran over my bare skin, a shuddering moan escaping my lips.
As my princess commands.
I felt Erik gently lift my shirt up, and I lifted my arms for him to fully remove it from my body before he tossed it to the side. The cool air hitting my skin made me shudder as Erik pulled me back in for another heated kiss. Damn his hands for memorizing my body. He knew what spots to caress, making me buck my hips against his and tighten my hold on him. When I felt his smirk against my mouth, I softly bit onto his lower lip, telling him silently not to play with me. I felt the warm sensation of his enthrallment invade my body, causing me to cuddle closer against his chest and softly grind my hips against his knee. His enthrallment was part of our foreplay, adding 10 times more pleasure to our sex. I knew that he poured every ounce of his love for me into our lovemaking. Every time we had sex was just another confession of true love between us. It wasn't just to feed hunger and desire, it became one of many ways we showed our love to each other. It was only a benefit that he was an incubus, a natural master of sex. Every touch made me tremble, and every kiss on my skin made me swoon and melt in his arms. He knew how to make me moan, how to make me crave him, how to make me shiver with ecstasy. I had been surprised to learn I was his first, and his only with how talented he was. Soon it wasn't just my shirt that was removed from my body. Every article of clothing he and I wore ended up scattered throughout the room. Unnoticed and uncared for, the only thing we cared about was each other, and the pleasure we gave each other on our bed. We made sweet and passionate love, rocking to the rhythms of our hearts and our desire for each other. Every moan I made, he matched it in his kind. Every breath I took, Erik found a way to make it heavier and hotter. My nails and fingernails dug into his shoulders and back in pure ecstasy as he continued to drive me into me over and over with his passion and love, pulling me higher and higher towards my limit. I could only tighten my legs around him, pulling him to more heated kisses, moan against his lips in desire. When we both apexed, it was a blissful and fiery ride towards a peaceful and loving wave washing over both our bodies. Lost in my pleasure, I could only cuddle into Erik's arms as he wrapped them around me and pulled me against his chest. His feather-like kisses peppered over my forehead, making me smile.
Good night, my princess. I love you.
I love you too, Erik. I could only close my eyes and relish the warmth Erik gave me as I let my mind escape into dreamland. To my surprise, the child didn't return. I was a bit saddened, but I didn't let my thoughts linger on any longer. I had a peaceful dream with Erik, wrapped around me all through the remainder of the night. As the morning came, however, the other incubi essentially kidnapped their brother. Despite my minor protests, knowing that we had work to do on the wedding, the brothers were relentless.
We're just stealing him for a bit. We'll return him later.
But we have to.
Everything will be alright. You can finish working on your dress while we keep him out of the house.
I mean, yeah, but...
You could survive a day without your love slave. You're marrying him, after all. It's not like he'll be gone forever.
Everything will be all right, Princess, I promise. As soon as we're done with whatever they want to do, then I'll come straight home.
Okay. I love you. I could barely make out him saying I love you too, as he was dragged away by his brothers. As the front door closed, I could hear Erik being thrown over someone's shoulder, probably Sam's. I sighed before looking around the mansion. Since I was indeed alone, I had the chance to try and find that spirit again. Why had it run away the first time? I quickly rushed the backyard, looking around it. It was much brighter, yes, but perhaps the spirit was still there. Despite not being able to find it, I scoured the entire mansion in hopes of meeting at the orb again. It almost became a game of hide and seek, only I didn't know if the orb was hiding or was gone. After a straight hour of looking around, I gave up. The orb was nowhere to be found, and I was certain I wouldn't meet it again. I could only let out a sigh at the thought, but I shook my head to forget about it at last. It had given me a moment with my love, so I was grateful. I went back into my room and flopped onto my bed, not really sure what to do. I could have organized what I was going to wear with my dress, but I really didn't want to pull my dress out of the garment bag it was in. Staring at the ceiling, I felt my eyelids slowly getting heavy, and soon I was letting my sudden drowsiness take hold of me. What was happening? Why did I feel like sleeping? It was close to noon, or was it past noon? I somehow couldn't remember anymore. I allowed myself to fall asleep, blaming the search and the wedding stress that lingered in my mind for tiring me out. My body floated in the darkness, met once again by a soft and peaceful lullaby. The snap was perfect, and I definitely deserved it. My body felt comfortable, and my thoughts were lulled into a quiet hum that accompanied the melody in the air. The only thing that would have made it better was Erik. As if my dream wanted to please me, an image of Erik appeared in my mind. He smiled, his heart-pulling smirk at me. I felt myself become warm and fuzzy just from his gaze. As he floated over me, I became entranced in his eyes. My voice wouldn't come out, despite wanting to say his name, but I wrapped my arms around his neck and pulled him close to me. He leaned into my embrace, ghosting his lips over mine teasingly. Was Dream Erik trying to seduce me in my own dreams? I pressed forward, wanting to kiss him. We both didn't make a sound, but let our kiss relay our love for each other between our lips. My heart pounded in my chest as he wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me even closer to him. It was strange. He felt so real in my arms. I combed my fingers through his hair, feeling the pink copper strands on top of his head. Yet this was a dream. I knew it was a dream. His arms gently ran along my back and waist, not daring to go below it, but making wonderful shivers run up my spine with each stroke. I really liked this dream and tightened my hold on Erik, letting him know that I enjoyed his touch. Erik eventually pulled away from the kiss and smiled down at me, running a hand over my hair and caressing my cheek. I stared at him lovingly, feeling a soft swell on my lips from the kiss we had shared. What I didn't expect was him slowly leaning down and planting a soft kiss over my chest, just over where my heart was. I stared, unsure why he did such a thing. As my heart began to feel warm and lighter, I let out a slight moan in my throat, feeling the pleasure of its sensation. Erik slowly backed away and disappeared, but I continued to feel the warmth over my heart sweetly emanate through my veins like a slow adrenaline rush. What was happening to me? Tingles ran across every nerve in my body, making me shiver in delight. Whatever this was, I liked it. Soon the warmth lulled me into a peaceful hum, and I curled into myself, wrapping my arms around my body from the comfort I brought. I felt at peace while my body felt like it was embracing the warmth enveloping it. It was strange, but I accepted the restful feeling. What? From the darkness, dark laughter invaded the air, breaking the lullaby and making a sudden cold feeling wash over my skin. Before I could react, however, a large and deep pain invaded my chest, almost like a sword stabbing all the way through my body. I could not see anything of the sort as I looked down at my chest, but my hands tightened over where the pain had erupted from. What was happening? I coughed, feeling blood splash out of my mouth and drip down my lips. I gasped for air, disgusted at the coppery taste of my mouth, but I was unable to break out of the illusion. I needed to wake up. The stabbing pain ripped through my inside, as if the invisible blade in my chest unsheathed itself from my torso. I felt a second stab through my stomach, more blood gushing from my mouth. Someone help me! I felt my body slowly start to shut down. Was I dying in my own dream? Why couldn't I wake up? Cold waves ran through my nerves, numbing my body as if I was indeed slowly dying. As blood dripped from my chin, I felt lightheaded in the darkness. But an almost violent shake broke me from my dream, forcing me to physically open my eyes.
Princess!
I gasped for air, no longer able to taste blood or feel pain. I was back in my room, staring at Erik's concerned face as he held my shoulders. I shuddered from the experience, unable to forget the feeling of being stabbed in my own dream. Erik, however, had saved me.
Love, what happened? You were thrashing around and...
I didn't let him finish. I grabbed Erik's body and slammed myself into his chest, happy to no longer be trapped in the dream, and thankful that he woke me from it. Erik wrapped his arms around me and gently rubbed my back, soothing me as I began to cry into his shoulder.
Did you have a nightmare?
It was terrible. I was being attacked by someone in the darkness. I couldn't do anything about it.
Shh. It's okay now. You were safe. I'm right here.
I could only nod as Erik rocked me back and forth, comforting me. It may have been a dream, but I was still mortified by it. It seemed almost too real to be just a dream. I didn't want to think about it anymore. I didn't want to remember the dream, especially how horrible it was. I was supposed to be getting mentally ready for my wedding, not having a nightmare about dying. Erik kissed over my head and face, trying to soothe my sadness. He wiped away my tears and continued to hold me close until I was calm and relaxed. I tried to reassure myself that it was a dream. It was just a stupid dream. Just a nightmare. Erik gently pulled away, not releasing me from his arms, and looked down at me with a soft frown.
I'm sorry that I left. I should have been here, making sure that you had good dreams.
I shook my head. Erik needed to spend time with his brothers. It was important enough to him that he let himself be dragged away by them. No, it's all right. I'll be fine.
Are you sure, Princess?
Yeah, I'm sure. I had to shake this off. I didn't know what was going on, but now Erik was here and could be with me in case anything else happened. After I had finally calmed down, Erik told me about what the boys had done. They took Erik to a cafe deep down in Chicago, just wanting to have a brother-to-brother talks with him. I was happy he got to spend time with them, but Erik had practically rushed home to return to me. The dream did not appear again that night. Erik used his powers to enter my dreams and kept me safe from anything that tried to hurt me, and thankfully nothing did. However, there was a strange feeling in my gut that didn't sit right with me. For some reason, Erik's comfort didn't make me feel okay. It was as if I didn't want him to be in my dreams. My heart knew this was a problem, but I was unsure of how to respond to this new feeling. Slowly, as the days passed by and our wedding approached, the feeling became more aggressive. Soon I was becoming irritated more easily. I became angry at the smallest things, the steps he took, the things he'd wear, the looks he gave me, or what I assumed he gave me. No, Erik, I don't want to do anything right now.
Love, I didn't say any...
You're looking at me with those sex eyes again.
Sex eyes? I swear, I wasn't doing anything of the sort.
You're doing it now. I couldn't control the words that were flying out of my mouth. Something was wrong, but I continued to speak cruelly towards Erik. My heart was at odds with me and my mind. I didn't know why I was doing it, but I continued my barrage.
Love, what is going on?
What's going on? You are what?
I'm sorry.
I felt Erik's enthrallment take over my body, forcing me to go weak in the knees and mule out in surprise. My mom stopped thinking about attacking Erik, and my heart felt entirely relieved that the urge was gone. Erik gently wrapped his arms around me, being sure to keep his arms around my shoulders, and rocked with me, trying to calm me down.
Love, are you having doubts?
No, I'm not. I don't know what
You swear you're not having doubts about us?
I promise. I was able to speak the truth under his spell. It was strange. It was like I was under a curse when I wasn't under his enthrallment. Somehow, despising every little thing Erik did, yet I knew it wasn't true. I loved everything about him, but my mind wouldn't agree. I gripped Erik's shirt, wanting to stay close and show my true feelings for him.
Listen to me, okay? I love you so much. If you have any doubts on us getting married, then please just tell me. I don't know what's going on in your beautiful head.
I love you too. I really, really do. I don't know what's happening to me. It made no sense. Why did I despise Erik yet love him? My mind, heart, and body were at odds with each other, and I wasn't sure what to do. This went on all the way until our wedding day. Somehow Erik managed to deal with me the entire time, enthralling me when things became rough to keep me calm. The other incubi tried to decipher what was going on with me, but none of them could figure it out. I was going to marry Erik, and then I was going to figure out what was wrong with me. I knew I still loved him with every inch of my heart, mind, body, and soul, so feeling disdain like this was not natural for me. I had asked Erik to place me under enthrallment for our wedding, in case I lashed out again. He reluctantly agreed and stayed with me the morning of our wedding day. I was supposed to dress alone and be by myself, but I needed Erik to keep me in check. I felt ridiculously warm and fuzzy as I stood in the bathroom, having come out of a hot shower with Erik. We didn't do anything together, but he remained close enough to keep me enthralled, and remained energized enough to maintain the enthrallment. Erik gently ran my brush through the strands of my hair, being as sweet and caring as he always was towards me. Because of the enthrallment, I felt each stroke and derived so much pleasure from his brushing, it was hard not to moan.
Well, love, today's the big day.
Yeah, I'm so happy.
I truly hope so. I'm the happiest man alive to be able to soon call you my wife.
I want to be your wife. I want you to be my husband. I felt like crying. Why did I have to be enthralled to say such things? I really loved him, but somehow I couldn't bring myself to say it without him casting a spell over me. Erik looked at me through the bathroom mirror and gently smiled, believing me and placing a small kiss on my cheek.
By the way, are you using a new soap?
Huh? I looked at Erik, unsure of what he meant. I used the same soap I always used, so my scent shouldn't have been different. Erik tilted his head and gently inhaled again before smiling a little wider.
You smell different. I kind of like it.
I blushed, not because of the enthrallment, but because I didn't know I had a different smell. Was something that off about me? I couldn't have been that drastic, right? Erik finished brushing my hair and smiled, kissing my head.
All right, time for you to get into your dress. I'm afraid that I can't join in dressing you as much as I want to. Can't see the bride in her gown before the wedding. I also have to get to the ceremony venue to get my tuxedo. However, my enthrallment should stay on you until you arrive.
I tried to fight back, but Erik held up his finger.
No. I promise that everything will be okay. As soon as I see you, I'll enthrall you again, and we can go through the ceremony as planned. Okay?
As much as I wanted to fight it, I was thankful that Erik was willing to go through all of this to make sure that I wouldn't throw a fit, despite me not wanting to in the first place. I agreed and earned a small kiss from him, which I relished.
All right. I love you. I'll see you soon.
I nodded, smiling back at him before he slipped on his regular clothing and left this mansion. I felt the enthrallment on me even flow through my body, so I needed to hurry and get ready before it wore off. I got dressed in the wedding dress of my dreams and smiled as I prepared my hair and jewelry. I really did look like the perfect bride, ready for a big day. While I was acting out against it, I would never know, but I was going to fix this after I sang I do. As I stared at myself, I could see a small glow about my body. Was it Erik's spell? I giggled, wrapping my arms around myself and enjoying the feel his spell had on me.
I knew it! I knew it! That girl has demon magic!
What the?
Then quit talking and let's take her! The Demon Lord will be so pleased.
Who? Before I could turn to search for the voices, I felt hands grab hold of my feet, and I looked down and lifted my dress. 2 pairs of evil-looking hands had taken hold of my ankles, reaching through a dark red and purple pentagram. I shrieked, trying to pull my legs away, but couldn't stop them as they swiftly pulled me into the ground. I was pulled deeper into the darkness. I was no longer in my room. I was being dragged through a dark void, one that I couldn't escape. I reached out and clawed at the dark, trying to find something to grab onto. I tried to pull my legs away from the hands that were holding them, but couldn't pull free. What was going on? Why was this happening? Someone help me! As if someone had heard my screams, I suddenly felt the hands let go and disappear, leaving me to float in the darkness they left me in. I shut my eyes. Please let this be a dream. Please let this be a dream. I finally felt a surface under my feet, and I collapsed onto it, my body curling on itself from the experience I had. I didn't dare to tear my eyes away from my lap, not ready to get up just yet. The voice I heard, however, made my heart stop.
You! What are you doing here?
I looked up, finally having the courage to take in my surroundings. My heart stopped beating for a moment, seizing in my chest. I looked to see 5 figures, strangers, monsters, beings I didn't recognize. They all looked down at me in surprise, as if I had dropped in at a very bad time. One man looked like an orc from a fantasy game, without the tusk. He had broken horns and a very frightening aura around him, as he stared at me. The other man was lanky in comparison, more human-like, but I could almost feel power emanating from him regardless. One of the women who was staring at me had rabbit ears. Rabbit ears? They twitched on top of her head. As she looked at me and gripped her staff, she seemed harmless, yet she had animal ears. The one creature that I could discern the sex of seemed more excited to see me than surprised. What freaked me out about them was that they had wings sticking out from their back, and they were floating. The last woman, however, set off alarm bells in my head as I looked at her surprised face, her hair, her eyes. Diana? As she stared, the woman turned her body towards me in recognition, to the name I called her. It was her.
What are you doing here?
Diana walked towards me and stared down at me. It was odd. She didn't look like a human, yet I wasn't afraid of her demon form as it towered over me. I was more in shock as to what was going on. Before Diana could speak further, most likely to repeat herself, a figure quickly stepped up and bowed to her, kneeling beside me.
My lady, please forgive me. I felt something moving between our worlds and assumed the Demon Lord was to blame, so I intercepted his summoning of this human.
You! So I wasn't the only one who felt the change in the air.
Diana stared at the man kneeling beside me as I kept my eyes up at her. As she turned her gaze back to me, I gulped silently. What was she going to do with me? This all felt wrong. I was about to be married. I was about to live my happily ever after with the man I loved. Now I was in a place I didn't know with Diana and a bunch of other creatures I didn't recognize. My instinct was to... I don't know. Let's see. Should we cry, scream, attack, or stay still? I don't know. We're in a strange place we don't recognize. It's Diana, though. I trust Diana. She's not going to harm us, so I'm going to say we stay still. I couldn't move. My mind was empty of emotions except for fear. Why was this happening? Why was Diana here? Diana stared down at me before sighing and kneeling down to my level. As she settled onto her knees, I leaned away from her, unsure what she'd do. Was she going to kiss me again and take my energy? Knowing her, maybe.
Can you tell me what happened?
I didn't want to speak. I felt no courage to. My mind was so wrapped around this chaos that I felt nothing but fear and anxiousness. This couldn't have been happening. I was dreaming.
Is she okay? I don't think so.
This is a waste of our time. Just kill her or something.
Yes, because that's a smart thing to do. Kill someone who is clearly traumatized and has done nothing to deserve death. Brilliant idea. Bravo.
Diana continued to stare at me, waiting for me to answer. Why? She didn't cast a spell on me, nor did she attack me. She continued to wait and stare. Slowly my mind began to sink into the situation. Diana was willing to listen. Was she willing to help? That was another question, but first I had to answer her. but my voice didn't want to answer still, so I forced myself to nod, wanting to answer her somehow. Diana smiled softly, which conflicted with my memories of her. She never smiled like that, yet she was now. Diana held out her hand, ushering me to take it.
Can you stand?
I nodded again and took her hand, standing up at last. I looked around at the other beings in the room. They all kept their gaze to me, unsure of what I would do or say. Diana, however, led the conversation.
First, can you tell me what happened to you?
I took a breath, recounting everything that happened. I was about to go to the church to be married, and then I was attacked by this darkness. A couple of hands grabbed my legs and pulled me into it, and then I fell here.
A shadow summoning?
Diana turned to one of the beings, the lanky male, and glared.
One of yours couldn't have.
On my honor, it wasn't any of mine. We have nothing to gain from kidnapping a human, nor do we know who this woman is anyhow.
My lady, if I may, I clearly remember hearing imp demons in the void along with her. It must have been the Demon Lord's henchmen.
Those damnable creatures. That explains it.
Diana crossed her arms and looked to me again.
Well, dear, it seems that you were to be either a new harem girl for the Demon Lord to ravish, or bait for the boys to return to their father's side. Either way, I doubt you would have lived long had the Demon Lord gotten his hands on you.
A violent shiver ran up my spine. Was it true? I would have died?
Wait a minute. This girl knows about the Demon Lord's heirs?
Yes. Hilariously enough, she was set to marry one of them, as you can see from her garb.
As Diana motioned towards my dress, I realized how vulnerable I was and felt extremely self-conscious. I wrapped my arms around myself as Diana let out a sigh.
Well, since you do not belong here, the obvious thing to do is to send you home.
I couldn't help but stare wide-eyed at Diana. She was really going to send me home? Really? I couldn't believe my ears. You really will send me back?
Of course. It should be easy to do once everything is in order. It'll be like you never left the human world.
Wait, like I never left the human world? What do you mean by left the human world? Diana stared before her, chuckling softly and gesturing to the room and beings within it.
Dear, do you not realize where you are? You are in the demon world.
My mind went blank. It couldn't be. I couldn't be in the demon world. No way in hell. I felt myself back up against the wall behind me, suddenly afraid. I was in another world. How? That was impossible. Diana stepped towards me, both of her hands softly trying to show she meant no harm, as she positioned them in front of her body.
Do not panic. We will send you back now, so there's nothing to worry about.
How will you power the spell? Bringing someone here is no easy task, but sending someone back consumes much more energy.
I'll use what energy I have now and rest. We can organize the siege another time when I fully recover. It's not like the Demon Lord can escape the corner we've trapped him in, so we do have some time to spare.
You'd waste time and energy on this human. We must strike now while the Demon Lord is weakened.
But the human doesn't belong here. She needs to go home.
Shall I prepare the return spell?
Do. I grant you permission to use my energy to power the spell.
With a nod, the lanky man held out his hands towards the wall. I looked over in the direction it was aimed at. Diana's shadow? I watched as Diana's shadow simply stood against the wall, mirroring the movements of the real succubus in the room. Before my eyes, the shadow began to morph and expand on the wall on its own. I looked back to Diana to see her wrapping her arms around herself and curling her shoulders over, as if she was in pain. Her nails embedded themselves into her forearms, and I could barely make out a painful hiss escaping her clenched teeth. Was the spell hurting her that badly? I turned back to the wall to see Diana's shadow shaking and vibrating as if it was resisting the change the man was forcing on it.
You will obey my command. Open the gates to the void, and allow passage to the world we seek.
Transitum perenam peto tranibris, ubi aperiut, ianoium, decidirum.
Upon Diana's final words, her shadow burst and expanded to an oval-shaped doorway. I stared wide at the passage before a hand placed itself on my shoulder, forcing me to look over. The one with the spear gently pressed my shoulder forward and looked down at me with almost a stern face.
You must leave now. The faster you leave, the quicker we can close the void.
Go! Go! Go get married!
I quickly nodded and lifted the bottom of my dress, stepping forward to make a run for the passageway. However, before I could bolt towards my freedom, a snarl echoed through the room.
How dare you interfere with my summoning!
At the very moment, Diana began to scream, arching her spine and throwing her head back. Around her body were red-tinted bolts of lightning flashing and shocking her form.
No! Human! Use the passage! Now!
He didn't have to tell me twice. I bolted towards the portal, diving forward as I neared it, but I was forced back by a burst of energy and a flash of red light. I fell to the floor, almost slamming my head onto the stone.
A human will never, ever leave this world alive! You spineless worm!
Close the portal! The Demon Lord might get through!
But the human...
Close it!
As commanded, the man pulled his hand back, visually forcing his arm back behind his body, and Diana's shadow quickly began to morph back into a simple shadow. The electricity around Diana faded away, and she began to tip forward. The man with the spear dropped his weapon and caught Diana in his arms, cradling her to his body as she panted and gasped for air.
I don't sense the Demon Lord anywhere.
The worm has to scurry through the shadows to try and fight back. He'll be dead soon enough.
How is she, guard?
Diana seemed to look uninjured, but her body was twitching from the aftermath of the magical attack. Her visible eye was shut tight as she dug her fingers into the guard's jacket to cling to him. As her eye opened, I saw not a blood ruby red color, but I saw a cold and unfriendly golden color painted over her iris. Her mouth opened as she panted for air, and I could see hunger in her facial expression. But she continued to stare at the wall, not wanting to make eye contact with anyone.
There are no physical wounds, but she's been weakened. I must give her my energy so she can recover.
The man swiftly moved and hooked an arm underneath Diana's knees, lifting her up bridal style as she clung to his jacket, shivering. The spirit that had fallen to the floor faded into black and purple mist as he quickly left the room with her in his arms. My mind, however, began to panic. I couldn't go home. Why was I being forced to stay? Damn the Demon Lord, this wasn't right.
There's an imp in the castle. That is the only way the Demon Lord could have been able to interfere.
You! Guards by the door! Hunt it down!
A pair of guards that were apparently by the door slew the one commanding them and ran off. I fell out of place, alone, terrified as what was going to happen. The Demon Lord wanted me here, and his words pounded at my mind. How was I going to get home? Would I ever be able to go home?
Hey.
I looked up to see the winged person hovering near me before they moved, and sat on their knees on the stone ground beside me.
We'll get you home, okay? Diana just needs a little rest, okay? She needs more than rest. She needs to use a different spell to send her back. The Demon Lord will expect her to use the shadow spell again.
How about the normal way? I'm sure we can connect to a witch, or even the warlock she used before, to reopen a portal to the human world.
The warlock she used to get to the human world died, remember? And he was the most powerful warlock in the human world, practically a god himself. What other human could be used to open a portal without another human dying?
It was merely a suggestion. The faster we get this human home, the faster we can move on and finish off the Demon Lord.
Well, what are we going to do with the human now?
We can give her a room to rest in. Humans need sleep after all. Maybe by the time she wakes up, we'll think of a solution. Come.
The woman with rabbit ears looked down at me and lowered her hand to me, inviting me to take it. She had a kind but concerned expression on her face, so I trusted her. I slowly took her hand and began to stand up as the fairy finger brushed off the small patch of dust that had accumulated on my dress. I couldn't do anything. I was forced to listen to the beings around me because there was nothing else I could do. Without them, I couldn't get home. My heart ached, but I had to accept my predicament.
Here, I'll bring you to the open ambassador's room. You are free to rest there for now.
I was led out of the room and into the hall. I kept my eyes down, trying to take in more of the situation I was in. I was trapped in the demon world, and Diana was out of commission. The demon lord had plans for me, but what exactly was he aiming for? I could have been bait. I could have been revenge. I didn't know, nor could I figure it out now. At least I was safe. At least I hoped I was safe. The woman led me to a room that practically screamed medieval fantasy. Everything was clean, but it still had that old age feel, as if no one had ever stepped foot in the room until that moment.
Rest here for now. When Diana is well again, we can discuss what to do.
Thank you. I nodded to the woman before she gently curtsied and left, closing the door behind her. I took a moment to observe my surroundings, interested in understanding the aesthetic. This was fantasy turned into reality. It was like I had gone back in time. Why, though? Why was the demon world really that behind in the times? Or did magic subside technology and this was the result? Despite the situation I was in, which was beyond heartbreaking and terrible, my curiosity began to fester in my mind, as if I was given a golden opportunity to learn something new. However, my thoughts began to drift and I felt myself becoming weak and dizzy, no doubt from the shock and trauma I had gone through. I stumbled towards the bed, needing to sit down and let everything settle in without passing out. As my rear hit the mattress, however, I let out a small, pleasured sigh. Holy crap, this is a comfy mattress. I felt myself fall back, and my entire body simply melted into the softness beneath my body. It was like I was sleeping on a cloud. Was that possible? Demon magic may have had something to do with it, but I was certain that I was drifting into almost a blissful sleep just by lying on the blankets and mattress. Not caring that I was still in my dress, I closed my eyes and drifted to sleep. I needed the rest, since Diana wouldn't be available for a while anyway. Darkness surrounded my mind, my dreams remaining silent and hushed in the cool and calm back. No nightmares appeared, and no sounds were made. I was simply resting, and that was all my body needed. I let my thoughts wander in my subconscious, thinking about what was going to happen now. What will the boys do when they realize I'm gone? What will he do? I imagined him finding a way through the demon world and pulling me back to where I belonged, wrapping me in his arms and swearing never to let me go. I would be relieved, and we would be married just as we planned. How unrealistic that was. I had to be realistic right now. I was stuck, and the only one who seemed to be able to send me back was Diana and her companions, whoever they were. I had to trust them, whether I liked it or not. Eventually, I did rise from my sleep, somehow fully refreshed and calm. How could that have been?
Did you have a good rest?
I turned my head to see Diana at the door, arms crossed and leaning against the door's archway. She had a look of concern and pure curiosity on her face as she awaited my answer. Diana stared at me slightly shocked. Did she not expect me to ask?
Huh. Well, yes, I'm fine now that I've had proper rest.
That's good. Diana shook her head and stepped into the room, closing the door behind her.
So we need to find another way to get you back to the human world. It won't be easy, but I believe it can be done by tonight at the latest.
Tonight? Really? Diana nodded and crossed her arms again, leaning on one hip.
It will take time to get our shadow agents to gather the necessary supplies, but they are not hard to obtain, being that we're in a position of power. You must be lucky.
What do you mean? Diana sighed before casting a short spell under her breath. In front of me appeared a floating map, almost like a hologram. It showed an entire world with mountains, plains, and forests, and it was all surrounded by sea and water. Diana pointed at a marker that had a purple banner at its tip. It was marked in the center of some mountain and forest area. It was also the very center of the map.
That is where we are currently, the center of the abyssal plains.
Diana then ran her finger in a circle around the marker, showing a perimeter around it.
Everything we need for the spell is within this area. It will just take time to gather the materials and prepare it.
I nodded, understanding the situation. It was going to hopefully be able to go home tonight, which was better than not going home at all. So, what should I do until then?
My suggestion? Stay in this room. I can mark this room as off limits so that no demon may enter that would confuse you for an intruder and kill you.
I gulped. I did not want to die. As Diana made the magical map disappear, she shrugged.
However, I cannot stop you from whatever you wish to do. Just don't leave the castle.
I nodded as she turned to leave. As she stepped out, Diana looked back to me with a reassuring look.
We'll get you back to the human world. I promise you that.
Finally, she left me alone in the room. I let out a small sigh and looked up at the ceiling. I had to wait until tonight to actually do anything. What was I going to do? Part of me agreed with Diana's suggestion, wanting to stay in the room and be safe in the case the guards didn't know who I was and who would kill me on sight. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the video here for part 1 of Erik's route, and I'll pick up again for part 2 of Erik's route. So anyway, though, guys, please do enjoy Erik's route of Seduce Me to the Demon War.